They told him to wait, but destiny does not wait. In the shadows of Coruscant, where war blurs judgment and prophecy is a whispered riddle, a single refusal echoes louder than 1,000 lightsabers. One moment, one choice. And the galaxy tilts toward a different fate. This is the forgotten path buried beneath the ruins of truth, where the chosen one did not obey. The Force trembled as Anakin Skywalker stood at the edge of duty and desire. He was not born to kneel, not to the Council, to fear. When the Jedi demanded silence, he answered with defiance, and the stars would never burn the same again. What if the chosen one had walked away from their commands? What if, in rejecting their control, he found something far more powerful than prophecy? A galaxy torn by war, council bound by tradition, and a young Jedi whose heart held both the light and the storm. This is the tale of a refusal that shattered destiny, a secret history of the Force that was never meant to be told. It began with a silence. Not in the Force, not in the stars, but in the heart of a man caught between prophecy and control. Anakin Skywalker, the chosen one, forged in war, revered in whispers, and feared in silence, was given an order. A quiet command dressed in respect, veiled in suspicion. Watch him. Spy on the Chancellor. The Jedi Council's voice was calm, detached. But beneath their robes, the order trembled. And Anakin, for the first time, did not bow. In this forbidden telling of galactic history, we begin not with a battle, but with a choice not to obey. When Anakin refused the Jedi Council's order to betray Chancellor Palpatine, the balance of the Force shifted, the timeline split. The future began to bleed. He did not lash out. He did not ignite his saber. He simply looked into the eyes of masters who had never fully trusted him, and spoke 4 words that cracked the foundation of the Republic. I will not spy. The council chamber went still. In this moment, destiny recoiled. The Force, ancient and infinite, held its breath, for the chosen one had disobeyed the very keepers of its light. It wasn't rebellion. Not yet, but the council felt it like a tremor through the floor of the temple. They had asked him to become something he was never meant to be, an informant, a tool. And Anakin, born of slavery and forged in fire, recognized chains when he felt them. Mace Windu's stare burned through the silence. Obi-Wan looked away. Yoda only sighed. Anakin left the council chambers that day not in anger, but in clarity. The Jedi had never truly trusted him. Not when he was a boy. Not when he became their greatest warrior. And not now, as the war reached its climax and the galaxy begged for peace. But now, he no longer trusted them. Back in his quarters, Anakin stood with Padme on the balcony, the wind of Coruscant sweeping through them like ghosts of futures unspoken. He didn't speak of the council, only of peace, only of a dream galaxy where the Jedi served without politics, where love was not a crime, where children born in the Outer Rim didn't grow up in chains. And Padme, watching the flicker in his eyes, saw something shift. He was no longer their servant. He was becoming something else. Palpatine felt it immediately. He had watched Anakin grow, fed his insecurities like a serpent in the dark. But even the Sith Lord had not predicted defiance. Not like this. Anakin's refusal to spy on him brought the entire chessboard into question. And yet, it also opened the door. Palpatine summoned Anakin late that night. No guards, no robes. Just truth. Dressed in shadows, he confessed what he truly was. Darth Sidious, the Dark Lord of the Sith, the architect of the Clone Wars. And instead of igniting his blade, Anakin listened, not out of agreement, but out of fury. He wanted to strike him down right there in the Chancellor's office. But something in the Force whispered, not yet. Palpatine did not plead. He tempted. He spoke of Padme, of death, of visions, of the Force beyond Jedi lies. Offered not just power but choice. Anakin didn't kneel, but neither did he kill. he walked away from Sidious, carrying a secret that threatened to set the galaxy ablaze. The next morning, he found Obi-Wan meditating alone in the temple gardens. This time, he was the one with secrets. He told Obi-Wan everything: the Council's mistrust, the Chancellor's true identity, the dreams of Padme's death, the pull of the dark side, but most of all, the weight of knowing he stood between two crumbling pillars, the Jedi and the Sith, and no longer believed in either. Obi-Wan sat in silence, torn. He had loved Anakin like a brother, but he was also a Jedi, bound by duty, trained to obey. And yet, hearing Anakin speak with no anger, no rage, only clarity, shook something loose in him. In this version of history, Obi-Wan didn't report him to the Council. Instead, he made a decision few remember. He left with Anakin. The Council was stunned. Two of their strongest generals disappeared, vanished into hyperspace, leaving only a cryptic message: "We follow the will of the Force, not your orders." Across the galaxy, war continued. But now the story had changed. With Obi-Wan and Anakin gone, the Jedi Council grew desperate. Yoda returned from Kashyyyk, weighed down by the fog and the Force. Windu tightened his grip on authority. A vote was taken. If the Chancellor would not give up emergency powers, he would be removed. But Palpatine had already foreseen this. He had prepared. When Windu and his team came to arrest him, there was no deception, no hesitation, only lightning and death. But the final blow never came, because the Chosen One was not there to intervene. Anakin had not rushed to save the Chancellor. He had refused the Council's orders, and so Windu fell. The others died, but Palpatine was never saved, because at the edge of the battle stood Obi-Wan Kenobi. And with a sudden strike, righteous, silent, absolute, he severed Sidious from the galaxy forever. The Sith Lord fell. The war, for a brief second, held still, but the darkness did not die with him. Without Palpatine, the Senate fractured. Planets rebelled. Systems demanded independence. The war did not end, it changed form. And the Jedi, exposed, accused of treason by half the galaxy, faced something worse than extinction. Irrelevance. Clone legions, leaderless and confused, turned on their Jedi generals without order. 66 ever being triggered. Battles broke out across systems. The galaxy tore itself apart. And in the center of the storm, Anakin and Obi-Wan wandered. Not as Jedi, not as as something lost between. They became myth. Some said they were hunting Sith remnants. Others said they were protecting refugees. A few whispered that they were building something new, a third path, one rooted in the Force, but free from dogma, where love was not forbidden, where attachment was not weakness. Where power did not demand control. Padme, hidden in the Outer Rim, gave birth to twins Luke and Leia in secret. For the first time, Anakin held peace in his arms, but peace is never safe in a galaxy built on war. From the ashes of the Republic, warlords rose. Some bore the banner of justice. Others carried the sigil of ancient Sith. And among them, a survivor emerged, Darth Maul, scarred, twisted, hungering for revenge. He rallied the remnants of the Separatists, rebuilt his shadow collective. And declared a new Sith empire. Not in the name of balance, but in vengeance for everything stolen from him. Anakin and Obi-Wan faced him on Dathomir, where the Force screamed in red and black. Their duel shattered mountains, cracked the sky. And in the final clash, Obi-Wan fell, not because he was weak, but because he chose mercy again. Maul left him broken, and Anakin, holding his master's body, did something no Jedi was ever taught to do. He wept. The end did not come in fire. It came in a whisper. Anakin Skywalker vanished after that battle. Some say he went to Ahch-To. Others claim he disappeared into the unknown regions. But Padme waited. For years, she raised Luke and Leia in secrecy, teaching them not of Jedi or Sith, but of courage, of compassion, of the Force as something alive, not controlled. The Jedi Temple stood empty, the Senate crumbled, the clones died out, but in the quiet places of the galaxy, a new legend began, not of chosen ones, not of wars, but of choice, of a moment long ago when one man refused the orders of both Jedi and Sith and chose his own path. A path that still echoes through the Force, because destiny is not given. It is claimed. And in that claiming, Anakin Skywalker became what no prophecy ever saw coming. Free. It began with a silence, not in the Force, not in the stars, but in the heart of a man who had been used too many times by people who called him hero but never brother. Anakin Skywalker, slave-born, war-forged, and prophecy-bound, stood in the hallowed chambers of the Jedi Council. The light through the tall windows cut across his face like a verdict. Across from him sat the masters of the Order, still, composed, powerful. Yet even in their serenity, fear lingered beneath their robes. "Spy on the Chancellor," they said. "Masted in language, observe, report, protect the Republic." But what they asked of him wasn't trust. It was betrayal. They didn't see him as a Jedi, not truly. He was a weapon they could not fully control, a prophecy they could not fully trust. But Anakin had changed. He had seen too much death, too much loss, too many dreams devoured in the name of peace. He had saved entire systems, watched brothers die. And still, they treated him like a boy. So he looked at them, not with defiance, but with finality, and said the words that would change the fate of the galaxy: "I will not spy." And in that moment, the future began to fracture. It wasn't rebellion, not yet, but to the Jedi Council. It felt like a crack in the temple walls. Anakin's refusal rang louder than any outburst. He didn't shout, he didn't argue, he simply chose. And choice, true, sovereign choice, was something the Council feared more than the Sith. Mace Windu's eyes narrowed, his jaw clenched, but he said nothing. Yoda closed his eyes, as if listening for an answer. The Force would not give. Obi-Wan just stared at the floor. The silence between them all spoke, louder than any command. Anakin turned and walked away, not with rage, but with clarity. The same clarity that had come to him in fire and war, in dreams of death, and in the growing knowledge that he stood alone between two orders that neither loved nor understood him. Outside, Coruscant pulsed with war machines and Senate gossip, but on a high balcony, Anakin stood with Padme. The wind brushed her hair as the city's glow reflected in her eyes, and Anakin, without saying it, confessed everything. Not the Chancellor's truth, not the Jedi's lies. His own. He dreamed of peace. Of their child, of a life where love wasn't betrayal. Padme said nothing. She just held his hand, and the Force shifted. Palpatine felt the disturbance almost immediately. The Sith Lord had orchestrated every move, played the Republic like a game of dissect. He had guided Anakin for years, whispering poison sweetly in the boy's ear, feeding him flattery, fear, and half-truths wrapped in fatherly concern. But he had not expected this. Refusal. Not to him, but to the Council. It meant Anakin was no longer predictable. And unpredictability was dangerous, even for a Sith. So he acted quickly, carefully. He summoned Anakin under the guise of concern, alone, no guards, no Senate aides, just a fatherly smile cloaked in darkness. This time, he didn't hide. He revealed everything. He spoke the name Darth Sidious aloud, admitted to commanding both sides of the clone wars, confessed to engineering the chaos that now swallowed the galaxy whole. But most of all, he spoke of death, the kind that stalked dreams, the kind that tore Anakin's soul in two. Padme's death, the vision, the screams, the grave that haunted his sleep, and then the offer. Life. Palpatine. didn't promise power. He promised the power to prevent loss. To stop the one thing the Jedi said was inevitable. Anakin didn't attack. He didn't kneel either. He simply turned and left. And as the door closed behind him, Palpatine smiled. For now, the game had truly begun. He didn't go to the Jedi Temple. He went to the only person who had ever truly seen him, not as a symbol, not as a threat, but as family. Obi-Wan Kenobi. He found him meditating beneath the temple's flowering trees, where sunlight filtered through branches like the whispers of the Force itself. Anakin stood in silence for a moment, then spoke, not with anger, not with fear, but with a heavy, quiet truth. He told Obi-Wan everything. Palpatine's confession, the truth of Darth Sidious, the Chancellor's manipulation, the Council's mistrust, the dreams of Padme dying, the aching truth that the galaxy had made him a weapon, but never a man. Obi-Wan sat, still as stone, but inside his soul shook. This was not the brash apprentice he had raised. This was something older, something weathered, something dangerous, but not because of hate, because of clarity. Anakin wasn't asking for permission. He wasn't asking for help. He was asking Obi-Wan to choose. To see the rot in the Order. To see how the Jedi had lost their way, how their laws had become chains. And Obi-Wan chose. He didn't report Anakin. He didn't lecture him. He stood up, placed a hand on Anakin's shoulder, and said the words the Jedi had never dared. Where you go, I go. And just like that, two of the most powerful Jedi vanished from the Order. The Jedi Temple awoke to absence. Two seats, once filled by its brightest, now stood cold and empty. Anakin Skywalker and Obi-Wan Kenobi were gone. No trace, no word. No trail but a final transmission. We serve the Force, not the Council. Panic rippled through the temple. Mace Windu tightened his grip on control. Yoda, returning from Kashyyyk, felt a storm that no meditation could calm. The Jedi were splintering. The Republic was unraveling. And in the shadows of the Chancellor's office, Sidious prepared to strike. The Council, now cornered, moved forward with desperation. Palpatine would not relinquish his emergency powers. His grasp on the Senate had become iron. Whispers of dictatorship grew louder. Mace Windu gathered his most trusted masters. They would arrest the Chancellor now before it was too late, but the Sith Lord was waiting. And in that towering office above Coruscant, the truth was unleashed. No longer veiled behind politics or pretense. Sidious struck. The duel was brutal. Quick. Final. Lightning scorched the walls. Blades hissed through the air. One by one, Jedi Masters fell. But just as Sidious raised his hand for the killing blow, Obi-Wan arrived. Not with rage. Not with fear. With purpose. And behind him, Anakin Skywalker. Together they entered the fire, and for the first time, the Chosen One fought not as a Jedi. Not as a Sith, but as something new. The battle was not prophecy. It was not written in ancient Jedi texts or foreseen by Sith visions. It was choice unleashed in raw, untamed fury. Obi-Wan and Anakin stood together against the darkness. Two blades. One bond. Not bound by the Jedi Code, nor seduced by the Sith promise. Sidious roared with ancient hatred. He had planned for everything, except this. Except unity forged not by control, but by trust. The clash shook the tower. Glass shattered. The Force screamed. Palpatine was powerful. Centuries of Sith knowledge burned through his veins. But he was alone, and Anakin Skywalker was not. In the final moment, it was not hate that struck the Dark Lord down. It was compassion. It was resolve. It was the refusal to become what they fought. Together, Obi-Wan and Anakin disarmed him, and with one swift, decisive strike, Anakin severed the Sith's legacy. The Republic's shadow fell, but the end of Sidious did not bring peace. It brought chaos. The Senate collapsed into panic. Systems accused the Jedi of treason. The clones, without guidance, fragmented. Some followed orders. Others refused. Skirmishes erupted across the stars. Without the Sith's hand controlling the war, the galaxy fractured under its own weight. The Jedi were blamed. Temples burned. Archives looted. Peacekeepers were hunted as conspirators. And in the galactic firestorm, Anakin and Obi-Wan disappeared into myth. They became ghosts. Not fugitives, but legends. In backwater systems and war-torn colonies, stories spread of two warriors, neither Jedi nor Sith, defending the innocent, shielding the weak, striking down injustice without banners or titles. Some called them traitors, others called them saviors, but all knew their names: Kenobi, Skywalker. While the galaxy fractured, they searched for something lost. Not power, not revenge. Balance. Anakin single quotes, "S heart belonged elsewhere, to the outer rim, where Padme Amidala, hidden in the shadows of a dying republic, gave birth to hope." Twins. Luke and Leia. And for the first time, Anakin held peace. No war, no orders, no fear. Just the sound of breath. Tiny, fragile, real. But peace in the galaxy is a momentary dream, always followed by the nightmare. From the ruins of the Clone Wars, a darker threat arose: Darth Maul, scarred, surviving, seething. The failed apprentice, the discarded weapon. He had lived while his master fell, and now he would finish what Sidious could not. He rallied the separatist remnants, forged a brutal alliance with underworld syndicates, and declared himself the new Sith sovereign, not cloaked in secrecy, but in open fire. His first act: burn the Jedi Temple. His next: hunt down the Chosen One. The call came from Dathomir, a world soaked in red mist and old magic, a graveyard of witches, a crucible of vengeance. Darth Maul had made it his throne, and it was there, on the cracked soil of that cursed world, that destiny summoned Anakin Skywalker for the final time. Obi-Wan stood beside him. Tired, scarred, but unwavering. They knew what waited for them beyond those shadows. Not just Maul, but the full weight of everything they'd left behind. The duel was legend. Sparks and blood, hatred and hope. Maul fought like a creature born of fire and torment. He had no empire, no prophecy, only the need to erase what had once humiliated him. He struck Obi-Wan down, not from strength, but from ruthlessness. And as Kenobi fell to his knees, whispering a final breath, the boy, Anakin shattered. Not with rage, but with resolve. He didn't scream. He ended. Maul. Swift. Final. No theatrics. No glory. Just justice. Then he carried Obi-Wan's body into the rising light. He wept. Not for the loss, but for the love, because Obi-Wan had believed in him when no one else did. And now Anakin was alone. He disappeared after that. Some say he wandered into the unknown regions. Others believe he watched from afar as his children grew. Luke. Leia. Raised in secret, guided not by the Jedi code, but by the stories of a father who chose love over power. The Republic never rose again, but something new took root slowly, quietly. A generation unchained from dogma, sensitive to the Force, yet untouched by its war. And in their dreams, some say they still hear a voice, not preaching. Not commanding. Just whispering truth. You don't have to choose their path. The Force is not their property. It lives in you. You are free. This is the tale they buried, the path they silenced, the story that was never meant to be told, because in this version of history, Anakin Skywalker didn't fall. He rose, not as a Jedi. Not as a Sith, but as something greater. Balance.